People throw the word manifestation around like crazy, and I'm glad that they do because it is awesome that human beings are becoming aware that we are interacting with reality, that we do have the ability to tune in a way that helps our dreams that we dream about and long for come to fruition. I want to talk about this because there are so many misconceptions about this, and I want to clear them up. And I want to perfect and fine tune and put this puzzle together on we do have this ability and what it takes to really do it. So, we've all had synchronous experiences in our lives where something is so more than coincidental that we start looking around going, what is going on? We all have had those experiences, some a lot, some a little, but you, if you're listening, I know you've had that experience. I want you to know that that was not a coincidence. I want you to feel it, love it, remember it, and long for more of it because that is what we're made of. Human beings are here. We are consciously interacting with reality and it is responding to us. I have to let you know that I have had extraordinary experiences that I have to share with you in order for you to know that I know what I'm talking about. And many of you may have already heard this if you've listened to my podcast. One of the defining experiences was when I went to a school of enlightenment and we were taught that we are consciousness and energy interacting with reality, which is also consciousness and energy. And we were forced to do exercises to prove that to be true to ourselves. So I had to put a blindfold on, focus on a card that I had drawn. And then 300 people were there. We each had drawn 2 cards and we scattered them within the crowd. We walked out to a football field size fence, maybe 2/3 the size of a football field. We put those cards facing away, clipped them on the fence, put blindfolds on, and walked. And the instructions were to focus only on what's on your card in with your blindfolds and walk. And you'll bump into people, just keep going. If you hit a fence, put your hand out. And if there's a card there, you can lift your blindfolds and turn it over. So there are 600 cards on a football field, almost sized field. And I'm blindfolded and I'm walking. And I had done this exercise before, but never believed that it was possible. And I would just allow myself to get distracted and think about other things and think about being hungry and think about how long I've been on the field. And of course, I never had any success with it. But this time, I had decided, since I'm coming here, it's because I want to find out if this is true. So there's no other choice than go all the way into this and find out if it's true. Even though it seems impossible, do it anyway because you need to know this. Otherwise, why would you be here? It's true. So I decided the whole time I was at this retreat, I was going to be focused on that card. Anytime, even in my spare time, I would be dreaming about it. So then finally we go to the field. Blindfolds on. And I walk for about 45 minutes. It seemed like it might have been an hour. I don't know. And I never hit a fence. And I just was so determined that no matter what happens, I'm going to keep that image in my mind. And if something replaces it, doesn't matter. Just bring it back up. Forgive yourself and bring it back up if you get distracted. You got one job. And that's what I did. And finally, after about an hour, I hit a fence. And you cannot imagine the feeling I felt. If you've never done anything like this, it's the absolute impossible. It's statistically impossible. The first card I touched was the one I turned over, and that was my card, one of 600 on a field that big that I blindfoldedly walked to. When you have an experience like that, you know nobody could ever convince me otherwise. Something is going on. Reality is playing with us in some way. It is interacting with our thoughts. Now, this was my most amazing experience with this, but it was not my first. Because when I was in volleyball as a high schooler, people would talk to me about visualization. And I, as a 5'8" volleyball player who wanted to get a Division I scholarship, realized that I needed that edge. So I did that. every night before I went to bed, I did what those coaches said, and I dreamed about playing with perfection, jumping higher, hitting stronger, the whole 9 yards, and getting a full ride Division I scholarship. I'd even just dream about signing the contract so I could play for 4 years because I didn't know how else I was going to pay for college, and I loved volleyball, and I didn't want to be done after high school. So after years of doing that, I won 3 state championships, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year in high school. And I, as a 5'8" volleyball player, got an outside hitter scholarship, full ride Division I. So I knew there was something going on there. Now I had a template. And then that template came to me later when I went to that school. I needed to know more about it. It happened even in between those experiences when I met my now husband. I had this really strong feeling like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is the one that I want to marry. I feel like we could be awesome together, but I had no template for a healthy marriage anywhere. So I did the same thing. I put my mind to it like I did with my volleyball, and I used my imagination to picture the most beautiful romantic vision of marriage that I have never seen existing anywhere. And I thought to myself, I was so cynical about marriage. I thought I was never going to get married unless. And so my unless became this image, this imagination I was building. Like, if it's that, I'll do it. Otherwise, forget it. It's a mess. Nobody gets that right. But I imagined it that way. And that's what's happened. That's all I can say. I've been 30 years married, and it just keeps getting good. And I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think it was possible at all. I didn't see anyone having it, and I just decided to imagine it. That then, in those 3 instances, for big things that I wanted, showed me that they all came to be. So I got used to this feeling. This is attention, and I want you to really hone in now because this is what makes it work. And people have so many misconceptions about it, which I'll get to some in a minute. But here is the state of being that makes it work and makes it happen. It is the complete vulnerability of admitting to God, the universe, and everything. It makes me cry when I even just enter that state of vulnerability. I want this. If I am alive, let me have this. And then envisioning it just the way you want to, over and over, the way you want to feel, the way you want to experience it. And then once you've completely gone vulnerable and honest and passionate about it, you give it away. You go, okay, I have expressed my deepest, truest desire. Now you take it. Whoever your you is, God, the universe, guides, whatever you speak to, something that's bigger than you, take it. You have to let it go and know that you are not everything. You are in a dance with the everything. And your role is to do the imagining and the dreaming and admitting that you have the desire, and now to give it away and let go of the outcome. That's the hardest part. Most people attach to the outcome. The second piece there is knowing that you've done your part and then let it go. It's not in your hands anymore. Okay? Then you can enter this reminder state of that I've done what I can do. It's like when you take the SAT and you've studied and you've done well in school and you tried your very best and then you got done with the SAT. You're like, well, it's now out of my hands. I did the best I could. It's like that state. That state matters. It is no longer yours, but you've done your part. Oh my gosh. One other experience that was like this for me was I was infertile. I could not have my own children. So we used an egg donor, and they put 2 embryos in my body, and I desperately wanted those children to both stay. Desperately. And I had done everything I could do, and I prayed and imagined and loved them and talked to them and welcomed them and said, please stay. I will serve your lives. I want nothing more than to serve your lives. But can you imagine the vulnerability? I know you all can because you've all had something like this, that it's out of my hands. And there was a Dave Matthews song, "It's out of my hands for now." And I listened to it over and over and over again to remind myself to have the right state of mind, that everything in me wanted it. It makes me cry. Everything in me wanted it. Everything in me expressed that desire, imagined that desire, spoke to those babies, did all the actions, and now it's out of my hands. That state of letting it be out of your hands is the hardest part, but that is a crucial part. When you experience this, when you master these states, you never get to where you know it's going to be true. It's going to come true. I got those twins. I got that marriage. I got that volleyball scholarship. I got that card on the fence by this process. But just last night, it came up again. My son applied for an internship that he's perfect for. He's made for it, and they like him. And I found myself so vulnerable again. I want nothing more than for him to get that. My point is that you never get to the point where you know it's going to work, even though it has happened in the past. It's always that vulnerability. We have to get used to it. We are walking around on a planet where we want things so badly, and we have a part to play in helping them come true, but we're not totally in charge. That state of vulnerability is what I want people to get really used to. It's a magical state. I'll find out likely this week if my son got that internship. But this morning, driving home from the gym, I was like feeling that vulnerable feeling. And I knew exactly what to do. Like, I'm going to go sit in my car before I go in my house, and I'm going to cry because I'm not in charge. I can't guarantee it. And then I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to express the deep, heartfelt desire, and then I'm going to give it away and let it go and know that I'm not in charge, but something is. And if it's not that internship, it'll be something. It might be even something better. So this state has proven itself to me so many times that I believe in it, and it's still never comfortable. But I want to show you, I want you to know that when you practice it, you'll start seeing these synchronicities like crazy, because it's almost as if life wants you to be doing this. It's like, thank you, you're finally playing with me. You looked up and you realized that we're in a game together and you're playing with me. It loves that. And so it wants to reward you. It wants to reward you. And here's another secret: it wants to surprise you. One thing I've noticed in all of these experiences, it always happens when you're not looking. It always happens when you're not looking. It loves to surprise you. I don't know why. I think I may have said this before, but Alan Watts says that we are playing peekaboo with God, or God is playing peekaboo with us. I love that statement. That's exactly what it's like. I'm going to tell you some amazing peekaboo stories in a minute. But the thing that is so profound about this statement that Alan Watts said is this: do you know why parents play peekaboo with their children? There is one reason why peekaboo is the perfect thing to play with little toddlers. Because it teaches them permanence. Permanence. It teaches your baby, your toddler, that when you turn around the corner, you don't go away. Now apply that to God playing with you. The moment that you're not connected, it plays peekaboo to show you its permanence in your life. Just when you're not looking. Just when you're not expecting it. I want you to know everything I said is I believe it's absolutely 100% true. I've needed this to be true. I needed to learn it because I was so depressed and so nonplussed with life that I had to go on a path to teach me that there could be something meaningful and beautiful here. It was not an easy path at all. It took me a lot of years to get to sense these things and sense a pattern and be able to talk to you in this way. I now want that pattern to be easier for you to find. I want for the rest of my life for people not to have it be this as hard as it was. So this is why I'm telling you this. So I'm going to give you a Peekaboo story, and then I want to talk about some misconceptions. There was a pattern in my life because my parents' marriage wasn't happy. I grew up feeling like if I could just make them happy, then life can be good. That created a permanent pattern in my life. So I was always trying to make everybody outside of me pleased and happy. So because I think I'm fine, but if they're not fine, because they can be out of control. So I would always put my energy on everybody else. And then when I was a teacher, I had a perfect job for that. It was always about the kids. And then I had my children, and then it was always about them. And it was always about my friends and family. And until that runs out. And I realized I had to put myself in my own life. And then I got the test from the universe. Like, are you really going to? And it does test us. It's like, okay, everything's going to come out of the woodwork. You're having this realization. I'm going to make it really hard for you. Will you stand up and do the thing you've never done? And this one time I did. The one time I finally did. And I've probably talked about this before, but I wanted to go away on a weekend to decide if I wanted to change careers and get a whole bunch of lesson planning done so that I wouldn't be working all summer for that school year. Everything came out of the woodwork. My daughter's crying, please don't go. Dad doesn't get it. I want you to be here. My son's like, we are out of chicken food. My mom's calling. Everything came out of the woodwork to make me not go. And I broke down. I thought, I'm going to fail this test. I'm not going to be able to do it, but I have to. And I decided to go. I got this awareness that, hey, I'm a person too. And if I never stand up in my own life, no one's ever going to do it for me. And I saw this vision of a one, like I matter too. I'm number one in my life. And if I don't put number one in my life, I'll never have a life of my own. I'll never do what I came here to do. So this one became aware. It was like my connection with God and just number one and I am. And I started seeing 11:11 on the clock all the time and 1:11. It was just constant. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, that makes sense because I finally put myself in my own life. That precipitated a series of events where I did decide to change careers, but that took me on a path that was way better than the one that I was even envisioning for myself. It became easier. It was like the red carpet was laid out for me. Once I'd made that choice to put myself in my life, everything flowed. And I got to my dream career now way faster than I expected. And I'm doing way more amazing work than I even dreamed of myself. So I passed that test. So this is the Peekaboo story, one of them. I'll just leave it to this one, but it's really something. I was on a weekend, girlfriend's weekend in Sedona, and we got up in the morning. It was 6:30, and we were having coffee and talking, or we were going to have coffee and talk. So we went into the kitchen to make coffee, and the stove clock says 11:11, but it's 6:30. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 11:11. That makes sense because I did something for myself. I took myself on a girls' weekend. And then we go back and sit in the living room, sit with our coffee, and we're talking and planning our hikes. And then after a while, we go back into the kitchen to pack our backpacks, and we look at the clock, and it's 1:11. It had been exactly 2 hours, and now it says it's 1:11. This story, stay with me. It will knock your socks off. I'm like, oh my God, 1:11. Girls' weekend, 11:11, and now 1:11. What are the chances that we spend exactly 2 hours sitting there? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Then we go on our hike, and we're having a great conversation, and my friend is struggling with something, and I realize I can help her right now. I can take her with this issue she's struggling with, and I can age regress her on this trail to where this origin of this issue started. And I can remove this from her. I've been doing this in my practice and I know I can. And so I go, hang on, let's come off to the side. Can I do something with you? And she goes, sure. And I do right then and there off to the side of this trail, age regression to the place where this issue in her began. And we do the healing process I do in my office. And I ask her how she's feeling after. And she goes, it's gone. I know exactly what to do. I have no feeling about this person anymore. They don't have any power over me. How'd you do that? It was amazing. And so now this 11:11 and it's 1:11, and now this experience that my life brought me on is helping my friend. And I'm amazed. And I just am talking to her about, I can't believe how wonderful this trip is. And then I just see these mountains and I take a picture of the mountains. And then when I look at my phone, this is the picture that comes up. There was a singular sunbeam coming straight down the center of that picture like a one. That wasn't in the picture when I took it, but the moment that I look at the picture, there it is. And I do one of these. And I tell my friend, look at this picture. You cannot make this up. 11:11, 1:11, and now this picture, you cannot make this up. And that could be the end of the story, but it's not. Because as we're now walking and we're talking about this, can you believe this? 11:11, then 1:11, and then this picture, like what is going on? And then we realize we've been talking for a while and we've lost our trail. And so my friend picks up her phone to look at the app to get back on trail. And she looks at her phone and goes, and I go, what? And she turns it towards me and it says it is 11:11. Because remember, this morning, it was 6:30 when the clock said 11:11. Now it's actually 11:11 right after I got that sunbeam. And then again, unbelievable. You cannot make this up. We continue to have an amazing trip. And then I go home, and the next morning, my mom and I are having coffee. We often have coffee and talk really early in the morning, like 5:30. And we're doing that. And she asks about my trip. And I tell her about the wonderful things, but then I remember this story and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom. And I tell her the story and I send her the picture that I just showed you. And she's like, that's incredible. And I said, I know. And I go to get another cup of coffee and on my coffee maker, it's 11:11, but it's 5:30 in the morning. I don't set my coffee maker. It says 11:11, the moment I have that moment with my mom. And even that's not the end of the story, because a few weeks later, we're having a family reunion in Kansas, and I'm in the car telling this story about all this. And I'm talking about how when you use this state, you can ask for a sign, like show me that you're listening. And so the next day, we're driving to the family reunion and we drive by this building in the park and it says the Sunflower Hut. And my son goes, oh my gosh, the Sunflower Hut. And I go, yeah. He's like, that's what I asked for, was a sunflower. So he took my stories about 11:11 and that night asked for something that he wanted and asked for a sign to be a sunflower. And the next morning he sees a sunflower hut. So that's even not the end of the story, because the next morning I am sharing this story with the family at the family reunion. And I'm talking about the 1:11, the same story I just told you. And then my son, it made me so happy, but he's learning about this and he's seeing life interact with him. And I feel so grateful as a mom that he knows that life loves him that much. And as I'm telling the story about the sunflower, I look behind me and the whole wall behind me is a mural of a sunflower. The whole wall. And I turn and go, oh my God. And everyone that I'm telling the story to does the same thing. This is a really good synchronicity story. And it's not the only one I have, but it's so undeniable that I want you listeners to know, you watchers to know, this is a state I want you to hone. It's in us all. There's nothing special about me. It's just that I needed it desperately in my life, and I was just built the way that I am, that I had to go after that above anything else. And that taught me whatever it's taught me so that I can make it easier for people to tune into what they are, which is playing with life and life playing with you and life wanting to surprise you and play peekaboo with you. So, misconceptions. A lot of people feel and say things that make me realize they think that they have to be perfect. Like the universe needs them to be so perfect that it won't play with them unless they get it all right or do it just right. For example, I just met someone and we talked about bartering services. And she said, "Well, I've heard though that you shouldn't barter because that's sending a message to the universe that you don't want money." No, that's not true. That's coming from a feeling like I have to be perfect in order for life to do anything with me. Life doesn't need us to be perfect. It does not need that. It's not that complicated, but yet it's also not a really super easy path to it either. It's a really subtle distinction. And the thing that I really want you to know is it may take some time. I don't know how long it'll take you. It showed itself over and over and over and over to such an undeniable state to me now because I was so dedicated to it, to finding out that I got good at being vulnerable because it's absolutely vulnerability that does it. You have to be vulnerable. But you don't have to be perfect. And what I also would say is that life wants you to accept yourself. Life loves you more when you accept yourself with every single thing you are. And so if you're afraid that life needs you to be perfect, admit to whatever, I think I'm not perfect enough and you won't play with me and I don't deserve it, and admit it and admit that you don't want that to be true. I want it to be more magical than this. I want to feel like something cares about me, but I don't. I don't believe it. So please show me. Do something outside of me to prove me wrong because I can't believe it. That alone, you accepting what you really are is the language that the universe speaks. Whatever you are. I'm a liar. Tell the universe, I'm a liar. Why do I lie? I lie because I'm insecure, and if I lie, people will believe I'm something more than I am, and I'm sorry. I don't want to be a liar. Life loves that. Life loves you being on the ground level of you, and it will reward that no matter how ugly it is. Life loves acceptance and punishes, for lack of a better word, resistance. Everything you resist and avoid and deny is going to bring pain and suffering to wake you up. But everything you accept, admit, vomit out of yourself will bring something good. That's the language of the universe. You being every part of you unabashedly and admittedly. And the good news is when you admit your grossest, ugliest, most embarrassing thing, you're on the way of growing out of it already. Life does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to love every damn part of yourself, the ugliest part of you. Accept it, admit it, say it, and wish for something more. When we ask a question of the universe that's something outside of us, it will find a way to bring it, even if we can't fathom how at all. Because in that moment, we know what we aren't and we know what we long for, and we're asking for our next level of growth to come to us. There's nothing more beautiful and important that you could do than dedicate your time to this. Dedicate your mind, your imagination, your passion, your vulnerability to this. Because who doesn't want life to be magical? We all do. Let's admit it. We all want to know that God loves us. Let's admit it. Every human being has these desires, these fears, these insecurities that maybe I just don't have. what it takes to make me lovable. We all have that until we don't. And the only way we get rid of it is to be what we are and find out that we are. And it's the most vulnerable thing in the world to do that. That's why people don't. That's why they avoid it. That's why they'll put their attention on their work, their house, their next relationship, anything but that. But if we do it, we get the most beautiful, amazing gift. And you will too. You will too. If you aren't feeling that life is magic, it's because you're not accepting yourself. Every part of you. There's nothing wrong with you. I hope that this touched you. I hope that my story haunts you. I hope you never forget it. I hope you know that we are all made of the very same thing and there's nothing special about me. I just needed to go after it, and it made me now sort of get this and want to give it to you. There's something about this, the journey that I've been on, that is making incredible things happen in my office. I'm taking people's ailments away. I'm taking people's trauma away. And I think one of the biggest reasons I'm able to do that as quickly and effectively as I can is because I know there's nothing wrong with them. And it's just my job to remove the belief that they had no choice to believe. I think there's something about me knowing it's not true that allows them to believe it's not true and let me get rid of it for them. And it's happening ridiculously fast. If you are still suffering in a repetitive cycle, if you are going to a therapist and it's slow, stop it. Give me a call. Look me up. Get an appointment. In 3 sessions, you will not be the same person. It has to do with this. It's all tied in. I don't know what else to tell you. It's a combination of the tools I've learned with the life I've lived and what it's shown me and what I seem to know about the human journey. Do not suffer anymore. If you have been going through the same struggle and the same thing keeps getting in your way, I can remove that for you. I've done it hundreds of times, hundreds of different issues. And we are on the cusp of a whole new kind of life. We don't need to spend decades suffering anymore. I hope that as you watch this, you feel what's in my heart for you. I know somehow I am a healer, and I came here to heal people of the shit that I had to feel for far too long. I'm mad for those people. I'm sad for those people, and I'm determined to get that out of their way faster than I got it out of my own way. I hope this haunts you. I hope you comment. I hope you ask me a question. I hope you send me an email. I hope you never forget what I've talked about today and you start doing it. If this has touched you in any way, like, subscribe, reach out to me, comment. I will answer every comment. I'll answer every question. Better yet, send me an email, sheila@shifthypnosis.org, and we'll get you an appointment on my schedule. I want my schedule to be filled with every single day, every single appointment, every single month, completely filled, taking people's pain away 10 times faster than they know is possible. Because I'm on a mission to change this world. I can't stand it. I still can't stand it. I'm happy inside now, but I still can't stand it the way it is out there. Let me help. Let me make it better for you as fast as you can possibly imagine. I'm Sheila Winger. This is Shift is Happening. Reach out to me. Thank you for listening. I love you.